G'day YouTubers. I've decided that I want to try deep dropping, and that means going out near the continental shelf and dropping a line down to see what you can pull up. In order to do that, you need a transducer that will send a signal down that deep to find the fish. I've researched it for several months. I initially wanted to put an in-hole transducer in, and I started work on that project. But talking to Airmar about it, and they're the transducer people, they advised against it because with the tunnel hull they were a bit worried that there'd be air bubbles coming through the tunnel when I was underway and the transducer wouldn't work through the air. So I ended up with a transom mount, and I picked the 265LH model as being the one for me. Now that transducer is supposed to be good down to about 900 metres, which is 3,000 feet of water, which is a long way down. That's nearly a kilometre down. A lot of line to have out, so I'll need an electric reel to get it back up, but we're not talking about that at the moment. This is about the transducer, so let's have a look at how I fitted that. Bit of a dull old day. It's a bit hard to find somewhere to photograph this. I didn't do the unboxing video because everyone knows how to do unboxing, but I will show you what it came in. The transducer came in this. It's hard to break it out. It came with all the fittings you need to fit it. That's the transducer itself. Oops, I just lost a pin. It's a massive bit of kit and quite heavy. It really needs a substantial bracket on the back of your boat to mount that. It comes with, of course, a lot of cord. More than enough there. I'm going to have to coil some of this up out of the way. And the plug suited for Raymarine, because this transducer suits a number of different sounders. You've got to get the right plug for it. They're the bits that go on the plug to lock it in onto the Axiom unit. I've taken all the bits out of there and out of there, and that's the remainder of the hardware for attaching it. I guess those long screws are for putting it into the hull. I'm not going to use them. I want a bolt with a nut on the end and a big distribution washer behind that. Key rings there would be for locking those pins in place once you got them in place. A couple of clips for holding the transducer cable at the back of the boat, and a cover to go over where you drill a hole to put it into the boat. Yeah, I hope the camera work hasn't been too bad. I had to hold onto the camera while I did that, but there you go. Now this is my idea for not having to drill holes below the water line to mount the 1 kilowatt CHIRP transducer. I've got these bolts here, piece of 3mm stainless steel. I've countersunk the heads in there, and I'm going to TIG weld these bolts into place. That's going to go on the back of the transom like that, and the transducer is going to go onto these bolts, and I'll have some holes up here further that are out of the water line to go through into the boat. It's been a good while since I've done the TIG welding, so I don't know how I'm going to go at it. Fingers crossed I can do it without making too much of a mess. I've got to grind this all flat, of course, because it's going up against the gel coat. Not the best TIG job in the world, but it will do for what I need. It's got a plastic covering on the back to protect it from scratching, so you get a decent finish on it, but I'm going to take it off before I went and TIG welded, but then I decided I wouldn't. You can see the plastic there that's burnt away. I could have stripped it off before I welded it. I sort of probably should have, I guess, but it shouldn't be too hard to scrape off now. And it doesn't really matter because that bit will be well and truly hidden behind the transducer. You'll also note that I've got some nuts on the other side of these bolts. They'll be coming off. I just put them there to hold the bolts straight and tight into the stainless steel while I welded them in place. Okay, that's the finished bracket ready to put on the boat. I ground the wells off nice and flat at the back. Because of the angle on the boat, on the transom, I've had to use all 3 wedges. So it must be a 21-degree angle on the transom on my boat. That's all ready to go on. I haven't put the centre bolt in, of course, because that's the lock bolt that stops you adjusting it, and I'll be using it for a few trips before I put that on, just to make sure that I've got everything right. Next thing to do is to mount it on the boat. Let's go drill the first hole in here to mount this in. I've measured it as precisely as I can, and I reckon that is where it needs to go. The other hole I've got to drill is to let the plug in. I'm going to put him somewhere around about there. Precise positioning doesn't matter a lot. And I've just got a hole saw that's just barely the right size for it. There we go. About there. The camera went off while I was mixing that, but I was explaining that I did a hot resin, which means putting a little bit of extra hardener in it, so that goes off quicker. We just want to coat the inside of the holes with it, make sure we give them a nice coat in there. The object of that's just to seal the ends of the glass so no moisture gets in. The good thing about hot resin is it doesn't take long to go off, so you're not waiting for very long before you can work with it. Okay, well, that's all I can do for now. Let that hot resin go off overnight and then I can bolt that in place tomorrow. I'm going to put this on now. Don't want to overdo it. You do want to fill the hole with sticker flex. Now put some duct tape on the inside of the hole so that we don't fill the boat up with sticker flex. We just want to get a good layer on that hole. I want to get a little bit on the screws as well. And then I'll put a gob in here as well. Don't have to make too much of a mess with it. Oh geez, I'm really not organised. Didn't get the screw ready, the driver ready. Don't have any strain on this side to pull a little bit back through. On the plant. Just a slightly bigger hole and just through the gel coat, just to get it started, so we don't chip out the gel coat. That's that much of it done. And that's a new CHIRP sounder. Got really good definition in it. It's on high CHIRP at the moment. Low CHIRP's not needed here. High CHIRP's not even needed here with the 1 kilowatt system, but nevertheless, that's what I've got to test. I tested it before. It holds bottom to 33 knots, which is as fast as a boat will go. It was holding bottom really well, so I think I've got it just in the right spot. That's a high CHIRP channel, and we're doing 21 knots, near enough. We're still holding bottom and it's rough. Rough enough to be pretty uncomfortable, so I'm backing it off again. In order to put the finishing touches on this bracket, I've taken it off the boat. Next thing I did was I drilled a hole through that locking hole in the centre. I drilled all the way through the bracket. Then I took the nuts off. So now, doing this single-handed, all that can come off, and there's the hole I drilled through it. I've got a countersink this side so I can weld another bolt in there, and then can all go back on the boat with sticker flex and it'll be there permanently. Countersunk the back of it so the screw sits in there, and I'll put a nut on this other side to hold it in straight while I weld it in place. TIG weld, of course, for this job, being stainless steel. Got that all securely bolted on there now, central bolt in, cut off the excess, lock nut on it of course with a washer, so that won't be moving again, none of this. I just bolt it back in onto the boat, and those holes are set, so it'll go back in exactly the same position it came off. But this time I'm going to put some sticker flex underneath it, so you've got to do some prep on it, give it a good clean, and then it's getting mounted permanently. Well, there you have it. This has mainly been about a method of mounting your transducer so that you don't have to drill more holes in your transom below the waterline. I did show it in use a little bit. I'm really happy with it. This 1 kilowatt transducer is supposed to be able to see the bottom in over 900 metres of water, and you're supposed to be able to find fish in over 300 metres of water, so that's 1,000 feet down. If it can do that, I'll be really happy. But one of the main things I wanted it for was to hold bottom in rough conditions when you're starting to get up on the plane. When you're coming back across the bar, most of the time you can see just how deep it is, but I do like to have the depth showing on the sounder, just as a bit of a security blanket really. So I will be taking this offshore just as soon as the snapper band lifts, and in my videos there I'll put some screenshots up just to show you what it's capable of doing out there with a little bit of depth under it. So stand by for those videos, and until then, good fishing.